power of silence. Have you ever closed your eyes to meditate and you find that rather than move into silence, you move into a very dangerous mental, not dangerous, just a busy place where you don't really relax and you don't let go. You just follow some line of thought, and you can sit there for 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and accomplish absolutely nothing. And that's the biggest challenge I think any of us have when we talk about becoming still and talk about the silence. What we are doing, what we are attempting to do in the silence is let go of all of the things that the mind follows, all those busy thought patterns that really have nothing to do with anything for the most part. When you're sitting when you've taken time to try to do this, and you sit down and you're not doing it, you're doing something else, somebody said, a lot of people meditate, it's worry with their eyes closed. And we're pursuing things in our quiet time. It seems like we have no choice. Close your eyes and your mind just shoots off someplace. So that's the biggest challenge that we have. But what's interesting about that is that what we're talking about, this thing we call the silence, it is the path to all that we are seeking. It's the entire answer to every question we have. And the reason it is the answer to every question we have is because in the silence, we come to ourselves. We come to our spiritual home. That's the whole point of letting go of everything, all of the distractions in our life, so we may settle into our center of power. And when you touch that place, then you go out into your life a different person. You have a new enthusiasm. You have new ideas. You don't feel so threatened by what is happening outside of yourself. And I think it's why Jesus said to go to your inner room and shut the door and pray to the Father who's in secret. The Father who sees in secret will reward you openly, which means your life will work. Your life will start working. I have found myself many times upset about something, distraught, and had the presence of mind to start letting it go, to sit down and be still. It seems like you're going exactly the opposite, doing exactly the opposite thing of what you should be doing. Because if you're upset about something, you want to resolve that. You want to resolve the upset, and that's why we get on this train of thought that we think of every angle that we possibly can. Have you ever watched a hamster on a wheel in a cage? They just run like crazy, but you know where they get off? They get off exactly where they got on. And that's what we do. We jump on this mental and emotional wheel, and we might call that our meditation time, when really our mind is not settled into what we're after, the experience that we want. We talk about becoming still and experiencing God. And that may be too big of a term to use for a lot of people, because that's a pretty big thing. To be still and know that I am God. Because so many of us have a picture of God that is larger than life. It's something that we're out of touch with, something big and maybe far off. It may be good to change our vocabulary. I'm not seeking God, I'm seeking myself. That's one thing I say in one of my books. Is let's not try to experience God in our time of silence. Let's try to experience our own soul. Let's try to experience who we are at that most relaxed center that we find in our time of quiet. It's a lot easier bar to jump, and it doesn't mean it's any less, because when you find yourself, you do find God. When you find your spiritual core, that's God. And it's nothing like the old man in the sky. You know, it's unfortunate that we have to deal with that kind of imagery. In some ways, I think many of the Eastern religions are better at describing what we're after in the spiritual experience than Christianity is. That's why so few people do it. You know, meditation used to be a bad word in terms of talk about practicing meditation. I shared this story with you, but I used to be on the radio when I had a church in Missouri and talked about meditation one time, and somebody wrote in saying that meditation will make you lose your mind. And I responded and I said, you are correct, and that's the whole point. We want to lose this busy mind. We want to let it go for a time because it accomplishes absolutely nothing. There's a problem-solving aspect that is good that we want to utilize, and we're not discounting any quality like this, that we have any capability. Entering the silence is a different thing. It is, again, finding your center of power. It's forgetting everything else, making the main objective of your time of quiet to recenter, to find your center of power, to come home, so that you may see your life in proper perspective. And I know as well as anyone how difficult it is sometimes to sit down and be still and let go of all the stuff that goes on in the mind. And often, if you can't still your mind, you're better off getting up and coming back later, because it won't accomplish anything. Again, you'll just worry with your eyes closed, and that's not what we want to do. But it seems counterintuitive to associate power with silence, especially when we acknowledge that it's the squeaking wheel that usually gets the grease. And in the world of circumstance, there are times when squeaking is called for. You probably had a few of those this week when you had to squeak a little bit to get something accomplished, get something done. So this whole spiritual thing is not about earth life and spiritual life. It's about both. There's times we may need to squeak. I had to squeak one time when I found there were several charges on my credit card that were not mine. Sometimes you have to squeak, and there's a time for it. I don't like doing it. I don't like having to do stuff like that. Who wants to resolve a fraudulent charge? In one case, 3 charges were missed, and one of these companies that collection company, they called us for 6 months trying to get this thing resolved, something we didn't even do. So there's times that we have that kind of thing. So we're not saying let's not do that. Let's not squeak sometimes if we have to. But this has nothing to do with that. What we are doing is allowing our awareness to fall down into the center of our being, where we know that we are good, that we are one with God, that we are unlimited beings. We're reestablishing our awareness in our center of power. And then we go out and take care of the fraudulent charge on our credit card, or we do whatever we are called upon to do. But it's real easy to get so sucked into that type of thing and stay there. And we go to bed at night there, and we wake up in the morning and start thinking about it right off. If we break that cycle and we truly discover in ourselves that there is something better, there's a different way I can experience my life, even though this thing is going on, that is very empowering. It gives us the ability to think clearly, to see clearly. And we all have these kinds of things go on. There's no, I don't think, any escape. And I think the more technically advanced we get, the worse it is. How many passwords do you have? I hate that. I hate having to do that. I've got a password for every account I think I have, and I know there's ways to narrow it down to one, but I got one of those one time and I couldn't figure out how to do it. But doesn't that get old? So the deeper we go into technology, the more distracted we become. We have problems now that who would have thought of this? And our cell phones, we never used to carry phones with us. People couldn't get in touch with us for however long we were gone. That's just, today it's unheard of. I can't be out of touch with all my friends for 10 seconds. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind doing that, but I'm saying there are more distractions now, more reasons for our mind to, when we had landlines only, did you ever hear anybody say, I wonder where my phone is? If they started saying that, you might check them in someplace. But we always knew where our phone was. And now we're never quite sure. So the development of our spiritual awareness is done in silence. Be still and know that I'm God is a powerful acknowledgement of this truth from the Psalmist. So we're talking about something different. We're talking about something that ties everything together, but it's a different activity. It's not even sitting down and reading something inspirational, although that can be a good way to lead into it. When we talk about the pursuit of the deepening of our spiritual awareness, we have to have an experience. It has to be experiential for it to actually take hold. We have to know, to be still and know. That's the phrase, be still and know. It's not just read a few lines and feel better. This be still and know means to be still and know your spiritual source. It's come to know that. And this is not a command, it's an invitation. It's an invitation to feel better, an invitation to think from a better place, an invitation to feel from a better place, to come home, to feel your center of peace and center of power. And from there, then you look at whatever's going on in your life and you look at it from a very different point of view. We get caught up in things, and that becomes our universe, our reality. And we start weighing everything. How am I going to get through this? I don't feel so good about it. Or we start measuring who we are based on what that looks like. And that's the frantic side. That's why we get frantic. But what is that? It's all mental and emotional. And the invitation to be still and know is drop down beneath that until we touch that center of power. And I think it's very important to not use the quiet time to solve problems, to try to solve one problem. And that is the problem of my busy mind. But not to solve all the other things that are going on. That's more in the arena of prayer. And I'll talk about that probably next week, just the difference. We're talking about finding our center and experiencing that center of power. To be still and know, as the psalmist says, is the place we begin. We're not trying to resolve the credit card fraud. We're not trying to even think of ourselves or our life as trying to heal something, trying to bring something into order. We're thinking only of our inner experience. I let go. I let go of the stress. I let go of the mental, emotional energy that I'm pouring into whatever it is. And I feel myself relax. I feel myself let go. And yes, we may read something inspirational to get our thoughts going in that direction. There's a lot of good material out there. But don't substitute reading for experience. because it's not the same. It's like the reading is, it can become almost like substance abuse. We get addicted to it. We read, it makes us feel good. Then we go about our life trying to remember what we read, and we need to come back and take another shot. Read again, read some more, until we feel better. We're talking about moving beyond that to an experiential level. And it's really not difficult to do. It's difficult at first for most people, and it's difficult in certain times. If you find it very difficult, just get up and don't even try, because you'll just end up more stressed out than you were before you sit down. But this be still and know it's a letting go of everything and dropping down into that awareness that there is a living center in me that is pushing out. I've said many times that we desire greater freedom. There's a reason that we desire greater freedom. It's because at the soul level, the place that we are looking for in our time of quiet, we are already free. We could not desire it if we didn't already know it was there. But we desire, we think, we connect that with a longing, a wish. I wish I were more free. I wish I were freer. Okay? So we then start searching through our mind to figure out ways to manipulate our life so we could be freer. We may think, well, I could have a yard sale and get rid of all the junk in my house that I don't use. That would be freeing. I could sell my house, buy a motorhome, and see the world. That would be freeing. We could go through all kinds of mental exercises in ways that we would accomplish freedom. But then we do those things and we find that we're still not free. We still don't have the freedom that we long for at a deep level. It's because freedom is an experiential thing. It's an actual moving of our awareness into that central fountain. And it's almost unfortunate that we call that God, just because of the preconceptions. I don't mind the word God, but the preconceptions we put on that word become a barrier. The recovery community calls it my higher power, and that's a good phrase, because it doesn't tend to make you think of the old man in the sky. But I have no trouble saying God, because it means something to me differently than it used to. Or Father. I don't mind Father. I know a lot of people can't stand the male whatever, and that's okay. God doesn't care what you call God. I don't think. I'm pretty sure. It's what you think that matters. But call it your higher self. Call it your center. Call it whatever you want to call it. Make it a user-friendly name where you're not trying to accomplish something that is beyond your control, or beyond your ability, I should say. And that is, to me, what so much of the spiritual path has become. That's why I have talked so much about don't call your soul evolving. Don't say that you are an evolving soul. Say that you are a complete soul. Say that your spiritual nature is already complete, and that completion is standing at the door of your consciousness and knocking. And you are responding to that. But it's not knocking saying, you can be more than you are today. It's saying you are more than you think right now. What do you think's knocking? You think it's Jesus? It's you. It's your true self. Your spiritual dimension, your soul. Whatever you want to call it. Again, there's no name that really says it. Especially when you begin to experience it. There's no description, no way to describe it. That's why Jesus spoke in parables. The kingdom of God is like this or that. You can't describe this very simple, very beautiful, very natural inner experience. You can't describe it. I try to, just because I'm up here trying to communicate ideas. But as I speak of this, I know I can't tell you what I experience. I don't need to. What I can say is what you are looking for is with you. That freedom that you desire is with you already. You don't have to develop anything. You let go. You let go of all the preconceptions. You let go. You release. Be still and know. We can only know God firsthand through our intuitive faculty. Look at how many people are trying to know God through a Bible or through a church, by joining a religious organization. We can only know God firsthand through our intuitive faculty. The kingdom of God is truly within you. I don't think people understood Jesus when he said that. I don't think they understand it to this day. Because some of the later translations say the kingdom of God is in your midst. And when you read that, you're supposed to think Jesus was talking about himself. Here I am, the Son of God in the midst of you. I'm here with you now. The kingdom has arrived. I don't think that's what he was talking about. He was saying that the thing you're looking for, and it only makes sense, is at the center of every person. Why would God put the solution to who we are outside of ourselves someplace? Nobody would find it. Nobody would achieve it. And the reason that so few people do is not because it's not accessible, but because they were taught it's somewhere else. We've all been taught that. I need to get married, raise a family, have a career, get an education, do all this stuff that is supposed to make me fulfilled, make me a whole person. But you don't hear much about be still and know I'm God. You don't hear much about let's find our center first. Maybe you won't want to go that route. Maybe you'll go a different route because you are self-contained. You find that you are free already. Maybe you won't need to go a route where you think you've got to earn something to be free. This creative life force that is the source of our being is always present, but it works in silence as a hidden, ever-sustaining fountain of living energy. And we all know this is true. What makes our body function? What heals our wounds? What causes, all the cells to do things that we're not even aware of? We're each endowed with a level of intelligence that our most brilliant scientists have never explained. They don't know how. They just know it's there. And they try to explain it. They never stop trying to explain it. But the good news is it doesn't have to be explained to work. Aren't we all glad of that? Somebody said, you've got to know how every part of your body works before it will. I think the more we learn about how our bodies work, the more paranoid we get. Just kind of almost too much information sometimes. But isn't that interesting that there's something in us that knows how to do all these things that we're not even aware of? And it's just so easy to take it for granted. But there's something already in us. And what is that something? We have just a surface understanding of it. And that's what entering the silence does. It allows us to drop into that. Myrtle Fillmore had tuberculosis, and she went to a lecture one time, and the speaker said that she felt that she had inherited this disease. She was told all her life that she had, and he made a statement that said, you are a child of God, therefore you cannot inherit sickness. And I guess that hit her like a 2x4 between the eyes. that statement, because she tried every medication that was out, went to every doctor, all the latest remedies. And so she began going into the silence, and she began speaking to her body, different areas of her body, acknowledging this life force, this creative life force, the energy of God is flowing through you. And she would talk to her body. And she also had an empty chair next to her that I've read, where she imagined Jesus was there guiding her and understanding the scriptures. And that worked for her. She came from a very traditional background. And it may work for you too. To have a guide, to imagine a guide is there helping us along. But she would speak to the various parts of her body and just acknowledge the life force is fully functional here. It's working here right now. And what you do when we do this, if we do this, is we're simply acknowledging what's already happening, and we stop stressing. We let go of some of the stress that seems to interfere with what it's trying to do and what it is doing. You know that if you're stressed out and you're all tensed up and you sit down and begin to just take a few deep breaths and let go, the more your mind becomes still, the body follows that. And it's exactly true, the opposite is true also, that when your mind is all tied in knots, what's the first thing that suffers? It's the body. And a lot of stress now is put on relaxation. And it's a good thing, but it's focused on the body. It's focused on the mind, on our daily thinking. It's not necessarily focused on finding our center, finding our spiritual source. And that's what we want to do. Relaxation of any kind is a good thing. But what is sold as meditation so much of the time is just physical and mental relaxation and emotional. It's not about finding our source. When you touch that inner presence, it changes you. It changes the way you think. It changes the way you see yourself. It is a genuine homecoming. So this creative life force that is the source of our being is always present, but it works in silence, and that's how we come to know it. It's hidden. It's that treasure hidden in the field. And we, in our times of quiet, discover that. And then we go out and we sell everything we own to buy that or to get that experience. To sell everything we own is to give up the thoughts, the negative views that we have, stress-producing ideas. We sell these things that we own so that we may move into this field. We may have this field, have this treasure. It's a very beautiful idea. The intellect can grasp the logic that this is so, but it is the intuitive faculty that makes it tangible. The intellect throws many hurdles in our way, mental images of God that distract us from knowing, from direct knowing. Coming to experience and know God requires discipline and commitment. Those two words probably are frightening to many on this path, because we've all tried to meditate, and we've all found the hurdles, challenges of doing that. To say that, well, it requires discipline and commitment. What's that mean? It means that we come to a place where we know what I'm saying, what is this idea that I'm conveying here is true. Is God within you? Do you really think that? Do you really believe that? Have you accepted that? Are you committed to that truth? It's not a negative thing. It's me stopping myself and saying, do I really believe this? Do I believe God can be found at my center? That's a pretty amazing thing. If God is accessible to me, then what can I do to experience God? How do I do that? We would kind of joke about that. A direct experience with God, who wouldn't put that at the top of the list of cool things to do? A direct experience with God. So we all have that ability, but very few people do it because we don't know how. We don't know the path. We don't know how simple it is. We don't know that it's so accessible that we overlook it. We think we have to evolve. We think we have to come back many lifetimes. We think we have to study and get some credential, some spiritual credential. I know many credentialed spiritual leaders that don't have a clue as to what I'm talking about right now. It has nothing to do with the information inside your head. It's all about direct experience. And that's one of the sad things about this business that I'm in, is there are so many that stand up and they have all the right cliches, they have all the right feel-good things that are said, and you go and you listen and you feel good, but then you go home and there's no God. There's no direct experience. The most powerful, profound moments in my life have taken place while I was alone. I've had some good experiences in groups and spiritual programs that I've attended, and very thankful for many of those that I did. But the most profound life change, the reason I'm standing here today, is because I had direct experience. And I end up saying, oh, that's what it is. That's not what I was expecting. It's different from what I was thinking. It's a living, natural energy that has always been there. It's very comfortable, very familiar, but I never took time to listen to it, to drop down into its domain. It's always a thought. I love this idea. God is within me. I love that. But I love the experience even more, the knowing. And that's what we want. You find a time when you won't be disturbed, a time dedicated to seeking your experience with God. This is something that we seem to find time for just about everything. But do we have a specific time? Do we have a time of worship? And by worship, I'm talking about letting go and being still and becoming aware. I don't like that word worship. I think one of the meanings is to lay down and lick the boots of somebody or something. It's a odd meaning. I shouldn't even say that because I don't have it correct. But it's, to bow down before somebody. And when I have the experience of God's presence, I'm not bowing down. I'm being lifted up. What bows down is the busy mind, the ego. We gladly bow. Every knee shall bow. Not because we're forced to, but because when we ask the question, how do I experience God? Then I devote specific time to answering that question. If I'm really interested in how to experience God, first of all, you got to sit down at a time where you can address the question. How do you experience God? There's only one way. God is within you, so you can't get it from a book, you can't get it from a church, you can't get it by joining something. So you go directly to it. So that requires setting aside specific time to do that. But make this your experience. Make this your thing. Love the Lord your God. That's what we're doing. We got to make this ours. This is our journey. We're so used to thinking of, I've joined this religion, so I'm with this group, and their theologians have got it all figured out, and here's how I'm supposed to think, and here's how we look at God and how God is probably thinking of us, and we have all this stuff worked out, and it has absolutely nothing to do with reality. We've joined something. We've become a part of a mental stream. In religion, it's mental emotional stream, primarily emotional, driven by emotion. Nothing to do with the reality in terms of what that experience of God is like. You may read some inspirational material to bring your purpose into focus, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with anything that I'm talking about here. But what is the purpose? Is it to read about God, or is it to experience God? I like to read books on travel, but isn't travel a lot more fun? Actually going and being there? I think it is, unless you're flying. Start with short periods and let these naturally increase as you begin to see the benefits of this quiet time. That's what's important, is make this experience yours. Make this journey yours. Make this process yours. You're not doing it because the minister said you need to do this. You have to come to the logic. Your brain has to work up to a certain point. If God is within me, that means God is within me. And that's where I find God. So how do I do that? So that's the beginning of making it your journey, your experience. It's me. I am an expression of God. God is a fountain within my being, okay? So we have the location. So how do we get there? And the only way that we will get there is by taking time to drop down into that level and find it and know it. But we don't stop there. Emily Cady talks about being receptive, like laying in the sunshine, which is looking pretty nice right now, and just absorbing the rays. You don't do anything. You just absorb. And that's a same way that we are approaching God. Say, I don't know how to do this, but I'm sitting here quietly waiting. It's an attitude. There's no action on our part, just a receptive knowing that that the living light that is God is rising into our awareness. We relax the body and keep the mind centered. If we have a favorite affirmation, we may find it helpful to quietly speak when our thoughts drift. Never try to force anything. The statement I will make when my mind drifts is very simple. It's I am. I am. It brings my awareness back to this moment, back to my purpose. And you never try to force yourself to come back. Do not become discouraged if nothing seems to happen. Often the fruit of this exercise comes in unexpected moments. And this is absolutely true. You can sit down in a time of quiet and you may feel like you didn't achieve anything. But then you're going throughout your day, maybe you're at a checkout counter at a store someplace, and suddenly you have this feeling of great compassion for everybody. And you don't know why. It's like an unconditional, something moves in you that just makes the world look different. And what is happening in those moments, you're taking off the lid, you're opening the door in yourself, and the light is cracking through. And when you put that together, when you say, well, I probably had that experience because of the quiet time I didn't think I entered, I was going through the act. But the act of sitting down and opening yourself to God as you understand God, that's an act of faith. That opens the faculty of your faith. It begins to open it maybe just a little bit. And that light comes through, and then it pops out sometime during the day when you're not expecting it. Something moves. And that encourages you to say, okay, I'm going to go back and let's do this again. And pretty soon you go back to that quiet time, not because you feel like you have to do it, but because you can't wait to see what more is there. You're opening the intuitive door, and through this door, the light of God will begin to shine in ways you're not looking for. I have remembered several experiences in the early days when this was all beginning to happen, where you could be, I could be riding with somebody in a car and just have this overwhelming sense of beauty and love and oneness. And I started saying, the reason this is happening is because it's different. It's something different than I've ever experienced. It's because I'm opening the door. And my meditation time is productive. Something is happening. Faith is a grain of mustard seed. That's all it takes. Very small. Okay? So that makes perfect sense, right? You can practice this in many ways. In my book, Complete Soul, I devote a whole chapter to different kinds of meditations, from walking to sitting down still, which you'll ultimately do. But there are many ways to begin to get into that zone. But it's there for us, and it's a tremendous thing to do. All right. I think next week I will talk about prayer, because meditation and prayer go together quite well. So I just defined what I'm going to do next week. All right. Thanks for coming out.
You've been watching a talk presented at the Unity Church of Grand Junction by Reverend Doug Bottorff. We would like to thank everyone who joined us here today in beautiful Grand Junction, Colorado, as well as those of you who are joining us online. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Also, please feel free to share this video with anyone you think might be interested or benefit from this message. If this video brought value to your life, please consider making a donation by clicking the link below to our PayPal donation account. Thanks again so much for watching.